Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another Opus Dei Deep Dive video. Or if it's your first time here, hi, welcome to my channel. Over the last several months, I have been doing deep dive research into the religious organization slash cult Opus Dei. So if that sounds like something that you'd be interested in, please consider subscribing. And if you've missed those past videos, you can find them compiled into a playlist over on my channel. Today we are going to be looking into Opus Dei's involvement in American politics. This is something that I've wanted to look into for a while because throughout all of my research and in past videos, that involvement has bled into things quite a bit. So today we're going to be sitting down and looking at that a little bit closer. Now, before we dive in, as always, I want to make sure that I mention that all of the links for the research that I did will be listed down in the description of this video. So if you want to go and read through things or verify things for yourself, you will find all of that information listed there, and I highly encourage you to go and look at it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dig into this. So Opus Dei has been a player in a variety of global politics for quite some time. Their activities have been significant but rarely of the type that make headlines. Opus Dei has existed in the background and on the sidelines of significant political events, funding and organizing efforts to accomplish concentrated goals in concert with world powers. Opus Dei has been identified as, quote, the most powerful and virulent exponent of the fundamentalist religious fervor sweeping the globe. Hardliners who trace their origins back to the Holy Inquisition and the Bloody Crusades, end quote. Now, I've talked about Opus Dei's involvement in foreign affairs before in my video about Opus Dei in South America and my video about Opus Dei and the Vatican. The examples that I listed in those videos are only a small handful of what we can safely assume are probably hundreds. Due to the fact that Opus Dei is self-governed, answering only to the Pope, with financial, educational, and publication agencies under their sole authority, as well as members within the highest levels of the world's most powerful governments, the organization is in the perfect position to become enmeshed in any number of covert missions and plans laid out by whichever top dog world power they decide to focus their energies on. As an example of one such individual that Opus Dei might like to court, something that I found through my research, there is an Opus Dei US government connection through an individual named Joseph E. Schmitz, who is a current member of Opus Dei and a former Pentagon Inspector General. He went on to become the Chief of Operations for Blackwater Worldwide in 2005. And while at the Pentagon, he'd been tasked with the job of overseeing all war contracts in Iraq and Afghanistan. His connection to war profiteers became well known. At least $2 trillion went missing from the Pentagon during his watch. Shortly after Schmitz exonerated his friends in the war industry, he announced that he was going to work for Blackwater, where he remains to this day. So that's an interesting piece of information about somebody who not only has a connection to the government, but also a connection to Opus Dei. I think to assume that there is not some correlation there and something significant there would be a mistake. Author of the book People of God, Penny Lernoux, noted that, quote, Opus Dei is an efficient machine run to achieve world power, end quote. The organization has been connected to the CIA via William Colby and their covert efforts during the 70s in an operation known as Gladio. Stay tuned for more on that because I will be doing a video covering Operation Gladio and Opus Dei at some later date. But Opus Dei's reactionary politics and globalist pretensions just so happen to coincide with those in positions of political power in Western civilization. The organization has used money and influence via the people it promotes to accomplish this. Opus Dei has wedged itself into the machinations of so-called US imperialism through their financing. A pretty significant example of this is the Woodlawn Foundation, which I have mentioned before. It's based out of New Rochelle, and it's the primary conduit of financing for Opus Dei, maintaining assets of about $15 million. In 2001, the foundation controlled some 10,000 shares with estimated proceeds of $415,000 of a corporation called Advanced Energy Systems, the largest producer of energy in the world, which had at that time nearly $12 billion in revenue. So let me rewind that a little bit in case all of those numbers boggled your mind for a minute. The Woodlawn Foundation is one of the ways Opus Dei funds itself. It's one of the nonprofit organizations that they use to funnel money throughout their network. This foundation owns shares of the largest producer of energy in the world, this Advanced Energy Systems. Civilization cannot advance itself without some way to harness energy, and Opus Dei just so happens to own shares of the biggest energy producer in the world. That should be telling you something. I don't think that that's an accident. Several high-ranking employees and AES's own co-founder are members of Opus Dei. And the now deceased former master chairman of AES, Richard G. Darman, had former titles to include Director of the U.S. Office of Management and Budget, Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Treasury, Assistant U.S. Secretary of Commerce, and member of the Council on Foreign Relations and Trilateral Commission. So this just goes to show the kinds of people and the organizations that Opus Dei gets close to. All of these people have ties to other bigger things. There is so much money involved. It's a really, really big deal, and nobody's talking about it. Darman also served as a partner and the managing director of the Carlyle Group, which, according to the Washington Post, is, quote, the largest private equity manager in the world, end quote. It specializes in defense contractors. Other members of note included the former Secretary of State James Baker, former UK Prime Minister John Major, and former President and CIA Chief George Bush Sr. So Carlyle is, in short, the high-flying financier of the military-industrial complex, and how lucky they are to call Opus Dei friends. All of this serves to illustrate the way in which Opus Dei allies itself with wealthy, influential individuals and organizations, all the better to serve their ulterior motives at some later unspecified date. The organizations and individuals that Opus Dei associates itself with are far from accidental. These relationships extend into all branches of U.S. government. One person that kept coming up quite a bit and that I think is pretty significant is somebody named Leonard Leo, who is a member of the Federalist Society, and he is associated with, quote, links to far older and more powerful networks that harken back to the most recondite history of Cold War politics and the CIA and their ostensible fight against communism through an unholy alliance between the intelligence agency, the Vatican, and the mob. This, of course, is in reference to Opus Dei, specifically the Catholic Information Center, of which Leo serves as a board member. And just to give you kind of an idea of the pools in which Leo swims, he was responsible for assisting in shepherding Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch as Supreme Court nominees. And although it may be difficult to know exactly how many people are benefiting from Opus Dei's influence, what is known is the fact that they have used the National Catholic Prayer Breakfast as a recruiting ground for members. And who is the president of the NCPB? Leonard Leo. Now, throughout all of my research into Opus Dei, I've managed to establish contacts with people who are way better at researching and finding information than I am, and they've been kind enough to share some of their resources with me. So I got my hands on the schedules for the Council on Environmental Quality, the Office of Management and Budget, and the Office of Sciences and Technology, as well as White House visitor names and the attendees of the annual prayer breakfast. And some cross-reference revealed that a significant number of people listed were in some way financially connected to Opus Dei. And of course, this is significant considering the influential individuals who attend the prayer breakfast every year. Now, of course, I can't show the documents that I am referencing because they were shared with me privately. So if you want to disregard what I'm saying, that's fine. But you should keep in mind that the fact that Leonard Leo serves as a board member for Opus Dei's Catholic Information Center is 100% true. And he does that while also presiding as president of the NCPB. So to assume that there's no overlap between the two would be absolutely asinine. Another aspect of Opus Dei's involvement in US politics that deserves more than just a passing glance is the Supreme Court. Out of the total 9 US Supreme Court justices, 5 are conservative Catholics. That's 55.6% of the Supreme Court. Of course, being a conservative Catholic is no crime, that's totally fine, and any judge worth their salt would know how and be able to maintain a separation of their ideologies from their position. But given Opus Dei's tendency to court potential members, it's worth noting this, as well as the fact that out of those 5, 2 had too close for comfort ties with Opus Dei. That's 22.2% of the Supreme Court. given the fact that Opus Dei has, time and again, clearly demonstrated a record of infiltrating the U.S. security establishment via conservative Catholics, the impact the organization can have on the day-to-day lives of Americans, as well as the long-term impact on national and global affairs, should not be taken lightly. MGR.org mentions that, quote, a review of public servants who have acknowledged being a part of the Opus Dei cult, a number which, because of their discretion, must only be the tip of the proverbial iceberg, should be enough to raise a few red flags of warning, end quote. Now, everything in this outline has presented information about Opus Dei's involvement on a pretty grand scale. We're talking primarily within the executive branch of U.S. government. However, they are in the state and local government as well. In many cases, that is traditionally where Opus Dei has started out. A lot of what Opus Dei has done when it comes to activism and involvement in society has a very grassroots feel to it. So if you're the type of person who pays attention or gets involved with your local politics, you should pay attention to who is funding what and where the money is coming from and where the money is going. There is a story that is currently developing between a state and local government and Opus Dei. For the time being, that's all I can say about it. At some point, I'll be able to talk more freely, but just pay attention, be vigilant in your community, pay attention to all of that money, pay attention to the key players in your local politics, be informed. There are a lot of major players involved in the running of governments, even just state and local, and all of them are out for their own self-interest the vast majority of the time. And in the long term, that can only be a bad thing because it deteriorates the democratic process and erodes people's ability to self-govern. So that's pretty much it for this video. Once again, everything will be listed down below in the description. You can go and check out all my links. I'll make sure everything is there. I encourage you to do some independent research as well, especially if you are watching this video and you're thinking that all of this sounds like some crazy conspiracy theory or it's too fantastic, or you're thinking that Opus Dei can't possibly be as harmful as I'm implying that they are. Please do some research. Please start to question some things and use those critical thinking skills that we all have and really should develop a little bit more than we do. I hope that you enjoyed this. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Leave a comment down below. If you've had an experience with Opus Dei, feel free to send me an email or a DM. I will keep you anonymous. I'll protect your identity if you don't want your information being shared. But if you want to share something, feel free to reach out. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope that I will see you for the next video whenever and wherever that may be. Bye.